Happy March, everyone! Hopefully, your weeks are off to a great start, and if not, I hope that you'll find a ray of sunshine by the end of the week. Welcome back to another episode of Therapy Reveal, where we reveal tips, tricks, and secrets on therapy, psychology, and mental health. I'm Blue, your host for today's episode, and today I'll be revealing all about self-harm and how one should react should they bump into someone who's struggling with managing their high levels of negative emotions. So, because March is notably known for being Self-Harm Awareness Month among other awareness topics, this episode was created to go over just that topic. And if you are someone who has experience with self-harm or just practicing this sort of behavior in order to manage such distressing emotions, feel free to watch this episode at a later date if you feel that this episode may somehow cause a trigger to go off in your memory, or if you know someone who is struggling with this experience, feel free to take into consideration the advice that this episode is going to go over. Let's find out and begin with the concept of self-harm. Self-harm is defined as the act of a person causing intentional injury to one's body, usually in the form of cutting, burning, and other painful acts, and, however, it's not a suicide attempt. Such actions may come to fruition due to the victim experiencing high levels of distress or overwhelming feelings, so they turn to self-harm as a method of relief. And according to research, victims may see self-harm as a way to 1. Temporarily relieve the intense feelings of pressure and anxiety, 2. To control and manage their pain, 3. To break through that emotional numbness that they're currently feeling, 4. To indirectly ask for help from other people around them, or 5. To guilt trip other people and scare them away from helping them overall. Self-harm may also be seen as a reflection of the victim's self-hatred. The victim may use self-harm as a way to punish themselves for having strong feelings that they weren't able to express as children, or for just being bad and undeserving of being able to express those negative emotions. And this behavior, this belief system, actually does stem from abusive experiences that they've had over the course of their life. So as one can probably see, self-harm is life-threatening and can lead to detrimental effects on a person's physical well-being with continuing such a practice. So when you meet someone who is practicing self-harm on their own time in order to relieve their stress, when you find out that they do that, consider treating them with compassion. There is always a reason why people do the things that they do. Now that I've revealed what self-harm is and why there are people who do so, I will now review how you can help someone who is struggling at this point in their lives. So one major misconception about people who practice self-harm is that they are only doing such things to gain attention. However, people who perform self-harm are actually doing so in a private setting, and they're not exactly asking to get attention for committing such a behavior. They are often experiencing a crisis and they just don't know how else to relieve such intense negative feelings that they may have. Thus, consider treating them, like I mentioned earlier, with compassion and without bias upon discovering their private behavior. And another thing, don't just tell them to stop harming themselves altogether, because the healing process actually takes a long time. It's actually very challenging, and it does take time, especially for someone who is using such a method to handle their distress, self-harm. But rather, stop, sit down, and listen to them, hear them out, and then try to help them find their reason for committing such a behavior and tackle the root cause from there. Help them find ways to achieve a solution and take it one step at a time in the recovery process. This way they can safely heal on their own time. However, if you are someone who is terrible at this comforting sort of thing, just help them get the appropriate help if necessary and leave them in the hands of a good professional, but still be around for them just in case. Well, that concludes the session for today's episode. I hope you all learned a thing or two about self-harm and gained awareness on this issue. Ask yourself, what can I do to help? And go from there to make a positive difference within a person's life. If you have any mental health stories that you would like to share or gain moral support for, feel free to DM us or leave a comment. Stay tuned for a new episode next Tuesday. And until then, everyone, stay compassionate and let's continue to help each other and our community. #move forward together. Bye!